Welcome everybody, this is Rafa from Mystic Times, and I'm very happy to once again have with me Tissus and Chang, also known as it wasn't the smelly flower, it was the, I keep forgetting the beautiful word for smell, but
Oh yeah,
the
fragrant.
fragrance, yeah, the fragrant flower, she's back with us. And yeah, we were just speaking about how I'm starting kind of a new stage in my life,
Hmm.
and you are kind of as well, because you are returning to teaching, and especially to teaching in person. And yeah, you were telling me how you feel about that.
Yes, yes. So I guess it's the first time in 2 years, really, that I've been back on campus. I teach at Smith College, which is a nearby university here, a women's school. And yeah, and because it's a course called Writing About the Senses, so, sight and sound and smell and taste and touch, it was very hard to do over Zoom. So you can just imagine, trying to have someone share a taste experience with someone, and
Mhm.
we're all like in our separate boxes. The only ones that worked, it worked really well to do hearing, because you can share music easily over Zoom. But things like in the smell unit, I teach them perfume. I teach them to make perfume, which is really hard to do,
Mm.
over Zoom. So it's great to be back in person, and I'm really just like loving being among young people again in person. So that's great. And a lot has happened since I talked to you last, which is like last year, I think.
Yeah, it was like a year and a half or something like that.
Really? Wow. So I
Yeah, I
think
could
I
check.
I don't know. I had I published this book yet? I can't remember. This is 36 Secrets.
Yeah, let me see. I lost the Zoom window. There you are. This is the one with going through the decans.
Yeah, yeah, I think
I
I
think you
just
had just
published it.
published that one, yeah.
Yeah, that one, and also this one had
Mm.
just come out. So let's see, on the book front, I'm doing a couple of different things right now. I did this little teeny fun one called Six Poems of Wood and Water. This one is
Yeah.
just this was inspired over the last year, during lockdown, of just going outside a lot and being in the woods and water near my house. I had done, I don't know if I told you, at the time I was in the middle of this year-long Greek magical papyri course, and with Jack Grail, and there was, basically a ritual every single week, and I spent a lot of time out in the woods doing ritual, and this is kind of what came out of it, this book. So just these little poems that arose spontaneously. And then let's see, this last fall, I try to write books in the fall when I'm not teaching. So this last fall, I have finished writing another book, which is the book version of my tarot course. So my tarot course is called The Living Tarot, and it's got like 260 students now. And so what I wanted to do, I talked to my publisher Llewellyn, and we decided to do a print version of that book. So that's at the publisher now. It'll come out next year, and then that'll, help people who find it easier to work with print than an online version, which is nice.
That's amazing. I bet it's probably a very good course.
It's a lot
You
of
seem like a
fun.
great teacher. Like, yeah, exactly. Very fun. Yeah.
I think the best thing about it, I mean, I like a lot about it. It's very much focused, unlike my books, which are pretty technical in some ways. I do a lot of Kabbalah. There's a lot of astrology. There's a lot of, sort of elements and correspondences in them. The course is much more based on what it's like to see tarot in your everyday life. Like if
Mm.
you get the Five of Pentacles and you're locked out of the gym or something like that, seeing how it shows up, in real ways for people. And every month we have a meeting online where we kind of get together and talk about different ways that the tarot has shown up in life, and meanings that the cards have taken on over the course of the month. And it's really wonderful because it's a little bit different for everybody. You know, my Six of Pentacles is not your Six of Pentacles. You know, my Four of Swords is not your Four of Swords, but they're related, right? And it's interesting to see how sometimes it's very literal. You know, sometimes people will literally embody the card. Sometimes it'll be personal. Sometimes it'll be something they heard on, you know, their radio or their podcast or whatever. And it gives you a sense that the tarot is coming alive in your life, right? It's what I call living the poem, you know, where you become, you know, it's as if you're living in metaphor, you're living in archetype. So that's really wonderful to see more and more people doing that and to be involved in that. And then every year, every month we do like a new spread that I come up with, which is also fun. But yeah, so that's been great. And then I did like 2 other big projects this year. I started, I don't know if I talked to you about this last time, but you know, my background, my academic background is in classics. I studied ancient Greek when I was in college. That was my main thing. And I've sort of revived that this year. I'm working on this course on reading the Iliad and the Odyssey. And this is with Jack Rail, who I did the PGM course with too. And what I do for that is I'm reading them in Greek, for which I haven't done since I was like 20 years old, and providing like insights and commentary on the Greek and finding Greek prayers and, you know, things that you would do to interact with the gods within that literature, and seeing how we can use them in kind of like a modern context if you want to pray or if you want to connect with spiritual entities, you know, beyond the mundane. So that's exciting. That's one thing. And then the other thing is that I've been working a lot with Jungians, people who, you know, Jung psychologists, and doing podcasts and teaching courses, and just exploring, you know, what it means to apply Jungian concepts like synchronicity or the, you know, archetypal order, or, you know, the collective unconscious, what it means to apply that to divination and to tarot. So it's been a really interesting, fun year, and it's been kind of mind expanding in all kinds of interesting ways I hadn't anticipated.
Yeah, you've been busy, and it's amazing everything that you're doing. I love all the things that you're talking about. It's like it all resonates so much with me.
Like it's all an excuse to be able to read interesting books and, you know, talk with interesting people and think about interesting ideas and, you know, try to make a living. So
yeah, you found a great track, let's say, to put your train and move forward. Right? Yeah, a track with a great view on either side.
It does have a great view.
Yeah. Recently, I've been reading this book. I don't know if you know about her. Her name is Betty Kovacs.
That sounds familiar. What's the book?
The book is called Merchants of Light.
Oh, I don't know
The
that.
consciousness that is changing the world.
Oh, tell me about that.
You would love this book.
Would I? I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, I'll send you a link later.
Yeah.
This is, you know, when you're reading those books that are putting into words stuff that you already know intuitively, right?
Yeah.
And she's especially talking about exactly these two sides of mind, of the, let's say, the rational and the intuitive. And she talks about how in a certain way in society today, we are kind of lost in the logic side of things, but that actually the logic language comes from poetic language or from symbolic language. They are both equally important, but kind of like in the development or something like that of humanity, the symbolic language is first. And so this connects very much with the work you do, with divination, with tarot, with working with all the symbols, and how mind talks to itself through symbols. And it goes like the book, it like traces history from the shamanic mystics of I don't know the names of the different epochs, but like from the Stone Age or whatever, and goes to today, and exploring how this has been changing and how there's been different different renaissances of the kind of the mystic mindset or something like that, to put it in. I don't remember exactly her words, but
Mhm.
and how these renaissances have been like is it quenched, is the word, like stopped or have stopped. And we are currently living through, if I'm remembering correct, to the fifth one. And it also connects so much with me because I started this podcast because I was feeling this thing, like people were starting to become more interested in astrology, in tarot, in spirituality, in alternative kinds of healing, learning to understand the mind through a more feminine lens. And the awakening of the divine feminine was very, very palpable, right? A couple of years ago. And this thing started, and suddenly we were stopped in our tracks again, right?
Yes.
Or something happened that put a kind of I wouldn't say we've been stopped, or that this fifth movement has been stopped, but that it was like it's hard to find the terms and not look at it as a one against the other, but there's been like okay, so this was awakening. Now chill a little bit, go slower. If you try to look at it in a positive way, it's like, okay, the universe is telling us, okay, you were maybe moving too fast. Now take some time to go within.
It's like that slammed on the brakes, and all of a sudden everyone had to just stop and go into their rooms, like a timeout. And, and I think it's interesting because it's been so hard on so many people, and a lot of people, not to mention all the people that we've lost over the last 2 years. So, I think this was just this, there's so few experiences that we can say everybody partakes in, globally. And this was one of them where, it affected everyone somehow, whether in a positive way or a negative way, whether, you actually passed into another realm or you went inside yourself, everyone has come out of this different, as if it was almost an initiation. So, I think but speaking back to the idea of symbol, that's something that I find fascinating. The idea that we don't always have to think in words, right? I'm fascinated by the idea of working with the dream realm, working with and working with tarot in ways that aren't necessarily verbal. Like, one of the things that I often tell people is that you can use a tarot card, as a talisman, as a talisman in your mind. Like, if you are experiencing, a low energy or feeling depressed or, unable to create agency in your life, you can just like hold the Ace of Wands in your mind, and not have to put words to it, but just kind of, put it in front of you like an energetic shield and allow it to, do some of the work for you. So that's a concept I talk about a lot when I'm reading for people, that you can work with cards because they are part of you, and you can consciously choose to say, this is the part of me I want to place in the foreground right now. This is the part of me that I want to work with. This is the part of me I want to access. And without even having to turn that into language, like what this means or what it is or how I interpret it, you can just sort of just have it there and feel it. Just
that's
like
so good, because exactly, this is part of the reason why I'm in a kind of a new stage in my life. I'm trying to incorporate all of this, and this thing of, for example, having the card and the image and the symbolic side of the mind active, it's definitely this feminine side of us, this silent part, and we tend to maybe kind of make the mistake of, okay, let's put words to describe it. It's not a mistake, but it's like we don't realize that the symbol is enough. That even if even if we don't put words to it and describe it for the rational mind to understand, just the drawing and the picture and the image has value and power in itself. We've kind of lost that, and I think it's good that we're starting to remember.
Absolutely. Like, if you look at the high priestess, who is, the one of the patrons of tarot, some people think she is, kind of the patron saint of tarot in a way. One of the important things about her is that even though she has this secret knowledge in there, she's not saying anything. Her mouth is closed. She's quiet and she's secret. So, there's something to be said for that, for allowing meaning to arise more spontaneously. I think that's interesting also, because when you think about what it means, to live in an archetypal world, to sense the shape of things around you, it's not that there's any specific, event that comes down when you do divination necessarily, unless you're really psychic. Like if I draw, I don't know, let's see, if I draw the tower, let's say, this card that everyone is so afraid of, I have a sense of what that will feel like, and the suddenness that it might come into my life, the violence in a way, the eruption of something, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to blow up my life. Doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily have a car accident, though that's maybe one of its meanings. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to trip and twist my ankle, though that could also be a meaning. It could also mean that something erupts into my life suddenly, right? It could also mean that I break something on purpose, right? Because it's not working for me anymore.
And also maybe we are holding on to something in life that isn't serving us, and this is going to destroy that, and it's going to feel horrible, but in the long run, it's actually going to help us let go of something we aren't realizing isn't serving, right?
That's right. And I really do think that, it's not that the force behind this card is not mean and it's not kind. It's impersonal, right? It's not trying to do something to me. It's just the way it is. And like a lot of experiences in life, I believe that, there's some choice about how you receive it and how you use it in your life. Like, astrologers always talk about the Saturn return when you're 29-ish years old, and how you can experience that as very limiting and very harsh, or you can experience that as a taking on of responsibility and structure that feels good. So, the tower is maybe the most challenging card to feel good about, but I think it can be done. I think it can be done. And I do think that sometimes we have some choice about how an archetypal force comes into our life, right? I think we have, we can't control everything, God knows. And, it's not as though when the pandemic came down and everyone was getting this card, it's not like anyone could roll back the pandemic and say, no, let's all be, let's put this virus back in its box. But there are better and worse ways to deal with whatever comes your way. And I do think you can have a hand in shaping it as well. So that's one of the things that I think about a lot, this sort of intersection between divination, which tells you, the thing that might be coming, versus magic, which allows you to give it some shape, as you don't have a choice that the Two of Swords is going to show up, but you have some choice as to how that shape of the Two of Swords arises in your life. So that's one of the things that I talk about a lot in my teaching and try to do in my own life all the time, try to not just, wait for the thing and anticipate it and live in fear or anticipation or hope, but also to act proactively, bring it to life.
The image that I get is not kind of, how there's this electromagnetic field around us, and it's kind of like the you drawing a particular card is a way that this electromagnetic field is manifesting, and you're like seeing, oh, okay, it's moving in this way, therefore it's bringing these events or reactions, etc. And earlier I told you I drew the hermit card today, before we started, and I drew 2 more cards, one of which was the 2 of Swords that you just brought
really
up. Yeah.
How about that? So what was the other one?
Maybe I'll tell you in a few minutes.
Do you draw cards every morning?
No, I'm trying to get a more in a habitual way of doing that, but I'm more like intuitively, like someday I feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to draw a card, and some days I'm not, but I'll see. I'll try to incorporate it more with time.
Yeah.
It's usually interesting, but sometimes what I find is that I kind of don't want to know,
Yes, I was going to ask you if you're ever kind of like afraid to, because that's something that people do experience. Like they're like, I'm not sure I want to know.
It's
Does
more,
that happen to you?
Not so much of being afraid of it, but like not my rational mind can become like very, very active if I give it the symbolic food, and sometimes I don't want it to be, therefore, so jump to conclusions. So when I'm feeling like really, sometimes I'm not in a good place, and etc., and I will draw cards because for some reason my rational mind will be more accepting of the help, let's say. But sometimes I feel intuitively that it's not going to use the information in a kind of neutral way, it's going to put something else into the thing. So I try those days to not do it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I mean, I use the cards almost as a form of meditation, in the sense that when you meditate, I think, which you probably do every day. Do you?
No, not really.
I don't either. But I think, when you meditate, you develop the practice of being able to clear your mind.
Yeah, right? Not to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead.
It depends on how we define meditation, right? If we're talking about sitting down, closing, breathing, it's not every day, no. But I probably every day or every week, definitely, I am in this kind of meditative place, being, I don't know, listening to music or even if I were to take out some cards, I would kind of go into this sort of meditative state, and maybe I go out walking in nature, I go to the park.
Exactly. It's the same thing, right? It's a way of kind of putting your mind into a space that's receptive and free from the normal preoccupations that you have.
It's pretty natural for me nowadays. I used to be very anxious and very hyper and worried and lots of rational mind.
I can't believe that. Really? Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I look at myself, because maybe you don't know, but so before we started, I was feeling kind of uneasy, so I put in somebody reading the Tao Te Ching. So because I thought, okay, listening to this will naturally help me like become more calm. But something interesting about my story is that almost 9 years ago, I was working in a hostel, and I met my spiritual teacher or my guru or something. I don't know where to put it, but he is a Taoist master or a Taoist teacher and a Chinese medicine doctor, an engineer. He's a very, very interesting and very wise person.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. And and that shaped me very much, because also connected to this meeting was also the meeting between myself and my girlfriend of since then we've been together.
Since
She's
then,
my
wow.
soulmate, and
Yeah.
it was a very interesting transformation that I went through.
Yeah.
We both did, and well, actually, it was so powerful. We traveled together and worked with him. We helped him translate from English to Spanish, because he speaks Spanish also, but not English. So we helped him with that, and we grew so much working with him, and just being in his presence and his energy. You know, we would go places, and as soon as he got there, things started changing. Like
Things start to happen, right?
his energy started moving, his vibrations started moving the vibration of the place, and so people, if we went to stay in a hotel, people that weren't very nice, they would be fired, and somebody else better would come, and they started like changing the furniture, and everything started moving. It was very incredible.
Yeah.
And
What an
being
interesting
around,
experience to be
yeah,
around.
being around a person like that, and all that experience of traveling with him changed me very much from this kind of more anxious person that I used to be. Yeah, that was the point of the story.
So there really was a distinct moment in time when things began to change for you.
Yeah, it was progressive, but like before I was more into, I started, you know, the 9/11 thing was a very pivotal moment for me. I think I was 11 or 12 years old. I was in school, and it was the morning, and they told us, oh, so we were in break, and they told us when the breaks ended, they took us to, and the adults were very serious. Oh, so okay, so something happened, the World Trade Center, and I didn't even know what the World Trade Center was. I didn't even know if I should be feeling worried or what I should be feeling. Then I went home and saw a few videos, and like on TV, and I got a bit more of a context for the information that they had given me. But with time, I started waking up from the pink colored glasses that you have maybe when you're a child and stuff like that. So yeah, that was like the start of my kind of awakening. And eventually one of the peak moments was when I met him, because I was investigating more of the metaphysical aspect of life, etc. And then just out of synchronicity, meeting him and meeting my girlfriend as well, that was like, yeah.
I think that's really interesting. I think there are certain times in our life when you can feel that your path is changing, you know, that there are crossroads.
And it was actually, I was 25, so maybe at that time it's like exactly around the Jupiter return, right? Which tends to be around the Jupiter expanding, and then around 28 or 29 is the Saturn return. So I had this very important shift there, and then I had some more years to start looking at my vocation and what I wanted to do with life. I look at myself when I was 25, and I don't recognize the person.
Right. No, absolutely. Something similar happened to me around the same age, but I'm a lot older than you. So this was in 1996 when I was about 26, 27. And that's when I first picked up a tarot deck. You know, I was very much a person who was, you know, on the rational mind track. I was a book editor, and I had this career in academic publishing, and I was getting, you know, that feeling when I would go home on the weekends and I'd be reading these very hard to understand manuscripts from mostly literary scholars, and I would sit at my table and I would start to feel like this congestion in my head, you know, that feeling of just like not being able to breathe or think, just feeling clogged up. And I just remember thinking, I need to do something completely different. And that's when I first, you know, feeling very foolish, I might add, I went to the store and I bought a tarot deck, and I said, I can't believe I'm doing this. Nobody's around, fortunately, so they can't see me. I live alone. So it was okay for me to explore, but it changed my life. It changed my life. It took a while, but the further I learned and the leaned in the direction of tarot, the better I felt. And so, it's taken, oh, however many years, 25 years to get to the point where this is what I do most of the time now. But that was a point when my story really changed. And I had to just say, this is what I want to be and who I want to, I want this to be part of my story. And that's one of my other beliefs, that, I think that human beings in some ways are just the stories that they tell themselves, right? You might think, I'm Rafa, I live here, I'm this age, but in fact, the thing that dominates how you experience the world is what story you tell yourself about who you are and where you're going. And I think that that is so powerful. The idea that you can actually change that story. It's not easy. Most of the time we don't, but you can change where you're going. And I think that's what I use tarot for, to help people figure out what story they are in and how they might be able to change it to another one. A lot of the time we're in a narrative where it seems like, I've been stuck in graduate school for 4 years and I'm not happy. And now I have to go get my degree and then get a job I won't like. Right. That's a story that has been written for you that you can change, which people can do. And, so that's a lot of what happens in my readings. We kind of see, is there an opportunity to shift the storyline here? Yeah, because mostly people don't come to me when everything's going fantastic.
And I can tell you like the work that you do, because again, something that's very interesting from Betty's book that I'm also that I already know and knew, but that I'm learning to put into words, is how, and it's something that I'm investing or researching and learning about more the last few days, how much mind, the Hermetic principle, the world, the universe is mental, blah, 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 blah. And how matter is shaped by mind. Mm-hmm. You say we are the stories we tell ourselves. Mm-hmm. How mind is primary, and the material world responds or reacts to the mental content that is surrounding us, which is not just the thoughts, but also the emotions. And you're telling me in 96, you were 26, 27 years old. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have guessed your age. I was doing some math with all the respect in the world.
Yeah, I'm 52.
You don't see the age that you are. Yeah. But the same thing happens with me, that lots of people don't gauge. Yeah, don't gauge the age that I actually am. They think I am younger, or sometimes even they think that I'm older. But
exactly. Yeah.
But your physical appearance tells the story of your mental world, right? And if you're doing stuff that you like, your appearance seems younger, seems happier, maybe seems more relaxed.
So yeah. I mean, I've been very I have managed to avoid doing anything that I don't like for a long time.
You're gonna need to share the secrets with us later.
No, I think a lot of it is just luck, just lucking out. So, and my family also is kind of like that. My father, when he was, he was 87 when he died, but well into his 70s, he looked so much younger. And it wasn't that he had the world's easiest life, but he was just such a happy guy, man. So I think there's something to what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Just blessed with I mean, I think he was pretty lucky in some ways. He never had had really trying life circumstances, but but he was really, truly such a happy guy that it's almost like he forgot to age.
Yeah, and even if you do have trying or hard times in your life, um, it's again, it's how you react to that, or how you manage
You
that
do have a
in,
choice.
in
You
your
do have a
insight.
choice.
For example, my spiritual teacher I was telling you about, he I believe him and his family were like in a they come from Taiwan, from like a mining town, so they all the family work in the mines, so it's very
Wow.
very um,
Yeah.
very bad for your health, you know, that kind of work.
Yeah.
and and in spite of that, and having had cancer and healing himself just by food, he
Really?
we would go and we would, just for fun, we would ask people how old they thought he was. People would say, I don't know, he's maybe 30 something, and he was at the time 70 or 70 something.
Oh my God. Wow.
So definitely, and he's a guy on a mission. He's like very
Yeah.
focused and very
Yeah.
very open to learn from anything. You know, we were supposed to be his helpers and his students, and many times he would stop and say, you know, you taught me this and you taught me that and you taught me that, and I just had a dream, and my dream told me that I need to listen more to what you guys say. I need to play more. I need to be more like a child. In my dream, I was a child, and stuff
Oh,
like that. You
wow.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the example of somebody that, because it's very rare, someone that can come and tell you, you know what, I was wrong and you were right, especially when they are
Yes.
in a higher position, let's say, or a more
Absolutely.
authority, right?
Absolutely. I think so. I mean, I think that, one of the things that tarot does for me is it allows me to kind of be in a place where I don't know, you know, and I don't have all the answers, because I think that one of the afflictions of our time is, you know, especially in America, you can see this like divide between left and right, between conservative and progressive, and sometimes the dialogue gets to the point where it's like everybody on each side feels like they've have it completely figured out,
Mhm.
right? And
And they
that
all
the
have the
other person is
evidence.
therefore, yeah, and that the other side is are idiots, or they're either stupid or they're evil. And when you get to that point, how can you move, right?
Yeah.
It's this is what I actually call, um there we go, here's this card, the 10 of swords mentality,
Mm.
right? That's when you think yourself into a corner and everything is black and white, and it happens to everyone. But and the sort of metaphysics behind that is that this is the associated with the sun in Gemini. And so you can imagine, Gemini being the twins, the sun splitting into very bright light and very dark shadow. And that's, lack of gray areas is one of the things I associate with this card. So, one of the things that I think tarot does for me personally is that every morning well, sometimes it's afternoon, but every day when I draw my cards, it's a way of me saying, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm prepared to accept whatever it is, because you don't know which of those cards is going to come up, right? You don't have any control over that. In fact, you're voluntarily giving up control. And then, but you're also saying, whatever I get, I'm going to make the best of it. So to me, this practice is my meditation. It is my sense of like how I maintain psychological health, is to say that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, right? Because this is what I'm doing symbolically with when I do the draw. It's the same thing. So yeah, so that's something that's really, the idea that you don't know, the relationship with accepting what fate gives you every single day is really important to me, even though I also believe in the magical side of the practice that allows you to kind of negotiate once you get whatever it is that you get. So it's both things at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think we were talking about something, and we kind of went on a tangent.
Yeah, we totally did.
I'm trying
We have a tendency to do that.
to return back to that. But I loved the idea of, oh yeah, so this was like a while back in the conversation. You mentioned the archetypal force,
Yeah.
and this idea of we are the stories we tell ourselves. I wrote down that to to remember it because it's very good, and the two sides of the mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that, one of the projects I want to kind of do next is I have this talk I gave some years ago called Four Stories, which separates, the four elements, the fire, water, air, and earth that you see in the tarot. So fire being wands and cups are water, and air is swords, and pentacles are earth. And then, each of the majors kind of has its own elemental force. But I kind of tried to think about what each of those stories elementally might be. And I kind of did this talk on it for Northwest Tarot Symposium in, I think, 2019. And I've been kind of wanting to make a book of that too, because I think that, you know, um, each of those stories has something to offer us. Like, for example, the story of fire is one that's very passionate. It's one of like being the hero of your own adventure, being at the center of your own myth, and finding your way through what it is that you want to becoming who you're meant to be, I guess. And then the story of water, the cup story, is one I call it a story of sacrifice and surrender, where you give something up, right? So whereas the wand story, you want to gain something, it's the cup story is kind of the opposite. You give something up because there's something more important. So the idea that you drown your ego, in the waters of the unconscious, and you gain something magical back. And then the story of air, I think of as the story of knowledge. So, and that's why when I say the 10 of swords, which is the end of the story of air, it's sort of like when you think you know it all, right? But you start from knowing nothing, and then, which is why the 2 of swords, which we talked about, has a blindfold. Actually, if you look at all of the swords cards in a row, you'll see that almost all of them have either a blindfold, or the eyes are closed, or you can't see their eyes. There's something about not being able to see what's ahead and struggling with that. So I call the story of air, of swords, the story of knowledge and its price. And then the final one is the story of earth, which I think of as the story of legacy, what you leave behind, stories of return and rebirth. So, which is why, if you look at the 10 of Pentacles, kind of wraps up the whole sequence. The 10 of Pentacles, has the whole tree of life, Kabbalistic tree of life on it, in that shape of the 6 pentacles on top, 4 pentacles on the bottom. And it is the idea that when you're here on earth, there's when you're done with your turn, you give something back, right? Whether it could be any form of material energy. It could be money, it could be your works, the things you've done, it could be your children. But the idea that at the end of it, you return all of that back into the earth to grow again. So, so I find these stories very interesting and helpful, and I try to kind of connect them with archetypal myth in my mind, to say that every story that we experience is in some way, you know, every story that we read, every story that we hear of or watch on in movies or read in books is our story too. And we can use that to help navigate our way. Like, for example, right now, this course on Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey, I think of the Iliad as a story of fire, the idea of the Trojan War, the idea that there's this thing that they really want to accomplish, which is the destruction of the city of Troy. And they succeed. And, you know, so if you think about the end of the Iliad, which is, you know, let's see, I can't find my 10 of swords, but if you think, oh, here it is. So if you take the 10 of swords, that is, you know, it is on the one hand, the assumption of this incredible burden, right?
And of wands.
Doing this, right, this incredibly difficult thing, the realization of an ambition, but also the destruction of a place. You know, it's the 10 of wands is this card that is so authoritarian that, like the 10 of swords, there's only one way it can finish. So, you know, and it's somebody's glory and somebody's ruin, because whenever there's a victor, unfortunately, there's usually a loser as well. So in the story of fire. Whereas the story of the Odyssey, the story of Odysseus, is very much a story of return. You know, it's a story of the earth, of coming back to your place, of returning to your homeland, of resuming your identity, and then passing it on to your son.
I love that story. Yeah, it really resonates with me. And actually, before earlier, when you mentioned that you've been studying the Greek classics, etc., I thought to mention that I actually have Greek. One of my last names is Greek.
Really?
Yeah, like
which one?
It's actually like my, because in the US you guys kind of drop the female last name, right? And you kind of, I don't know how it is for everyone personally, but you kind of forget them or something like that. But in our case, I guess it's more from the Spanish influence or the Latin influence. We keep both, and so I have my father's last name, then it's my mother's last name, then it's my father's mother's last name, then it's my mother's, right? So we each have two.
Does it go all the way back?
And you get two from each parent and from each grandfather. So my grandmother from my father's side, she her last name, her father had a Greek last name. So
no kidding.
Yeah, and the name is Mitre. It's kind of like Demeter, the goddess Demeter.
Oh, Dmitri. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It kind of comes, I guess, etymologically from that story. But when I hear about the Greek pantheon and the Greek stories and the myths, etc., it resonates in a very interesting way with me. I guess it has something to do with genetics or something like that. Or
maybe it does. I don't know. I don't have any Greek ancestry whatsoever, and I have loved ancient Greek since I was 16. So I can't tell you why these things happen. Yeah. But you know, and it's fun because it's sort of like, you know, I've been studying this language for 30 years, and it's still hard. You know, it's still hard for me, but I love it. And you know, every day now I have the opportunity to read Greek and ancient Greek and to speak ancient Greek, because I use the Orphic hymns in my own ritual practice every day. So so today being Monday, I will be reciting the Orphic hymn to Selene, to the moon, when I do my practice today, and it's absolutely beautiful. So, you know, so there's something to be said for loving things that you have no claim to.
Yeah, but at the same time, we all do have this separation, you know, that people are making this kind of polarization, you know, like, oh, this is mine because I have the genetics or something. That's dumb. I mean, we're all human. These are stories that come from the mind, and that's a place where we've all been there, and we're all going back there when we die. It's a common inheritance of all of us. No, but I wanted to mention it that because I found it interesting that you brought up the idea of the Greek classics and those stories. For some reason, I mean, I don't know them very well, but for example, I hear or there's this. I really like progressive rock, and there's this band that or there's this like 3 albums that have. It's a very interesting project. It's all different bands, and they all were like tasked with making a piece of the story of the Odyssey. And
Oh,
but
really?
yeah,
How
and
interesting.
they all had to use like the same instruments, so in order to give it a kind of cohesive sound, even
Yeah.
though it's all different bands, and
Yeah.
they they each had to tell like a part of the story, and in a kind of epic song, you know, so they're all songs that are like 20 to 30 minutes or something like that each, with
Wow.
different acts and different pieces and instrumental parts,
Yeah.
parts with singing, etc. I really love that kind of stuff. And there's
Tell me, do
this,
you know the
yeah,
name? What's the name of that project? Because I'd be
um,
interested in checking it out.
it's called something Odyssey, the Greatest Tale. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that you can find
Yeah.
it on the internet, but maybe there's a way that I can send it to you.
I'd
And
love to check it out because I think
yeah,
that's so interesting. There's something about the Odyssey in particular that
it's an amazing
people
story,
really,
yeah. And
yeah,
there's
people
this
really connect
band
with.
from Argentina that made one of the songs, and
Yeah.
I haven't been able to find anything else by this band, so it's a kind of a gem. And when I
Yeah.
listen to their song, you know, they sing it in Spanish, and it's from the return of
Yeah.
Odysseus. Um,
Yeah.
it's like it fills me up with such emotion. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure. You're a musician too. Have you been making music lately?
Yeah, actually, the most music I'm making now is with my cell phone with GarageBand. I mean, I guess you could call it electronic music, but not dance music, more like
Mhm.
ambient and some lo-fi
Ambient.
hip hop kind of that kind of stuff. I found like in that application, I found a great place to like channel my creativity through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine, especially during the pandemic. There's so much wonderful music that's come out of people's private apartments and experiences,
Mm.
because what else was there to do? I think it's been kind of an amazing creative flowering, actually, out of this difficult time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
for
my
sure.
internet connection is a little bit
Yeah,
ratchet.
you're freezing a little, but I
Yeah.
agree. I think that in the cable just came out.
Yeah, I'm just putting my Ethernet cable in
Oh,
to
cool, cool.
stabilize things. Yeah.
I think that yeah, like we were speaking at the start, we were, if we look at it from a positive side of everything that's happened, it's kind of we were given the blessing of going slower and going within. I think we were awakening to the mystical side of things, to the invisible world, to the symbolic, etc. And maybe we weren't ready to just be given free reign. Maybe, who knows, like what I say, that I don't read every day because I think sometimes my rational mind will do something uh, not as useful with the information. So maybe we were kind of in that place. We had begun to draw the cards and to connect with the symbols, but our rational mind still wasn't ready to just be guided by that. I mean, collectively, right? And
Yeah.
so the universe thought it better if we were to just, okay, you're going to draw the cards, but you need to be with them. You need to feel them.
Mm.
So
Mm.
don't go out of your house. Stay inside.
Well, yes, it's very interesting. One of the things I always thought, pre-pandemic, is that traveling, going places you don't know, having adventures really helps you figure out who you are. But another thing that helps you figure out who you are is being shut in your room, for 2 years, it turns out. It's interesting because there's sort of like, you find out who you are outwardly by exposing yourself to things that are very different from you, but you can find out who you are inwardly by being, having to confront yourself and being stuck with yourself for 2 years. Sort of like there's a magical practice where you sort of just stare at yourself in the mirror for, until you become strange to yourself,
until you disappear.
2 or 3 minutes, which is very interesting.
I think what you were just saying is kind of, I think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of the story of fire versus the story of water, maybe. Right?
Yes, I was just thinking the same thing. Yes, it's very perceptive of you to pick up on that. I was thinking that too, or that the outward story is maybe fire or maybe air, and the inward story is maybe water or maybe earth. There's those two different poles. I mean, that's interesting. That's really interesting to think about. Like, I think of if you think about these guys, these are the Knight of Wands. And sorry, I have a lot of glare in here. Knight of Wands and Knight of Swords. These are the guys who are always off on adventures, discovering who they are, either by the Knight of Wands has a lot of charisma, so he has a way of attracting an audience, but they're all strangers. Whereas the Knight of Swords, likes to fight people, so so they both are in this sort of place of interacting with strangers. But with the experience of cups and of pentacles is so much more internal. Like, here's the Seven of Cups, which is what I call the card of the artist. You take something, which to me really speaks to this experience of creativity inside the pandemic. You take your experience, you go inside, and you create a garden of wonderful, different, unexpected things out of your own consciousness. Or in the Pentacles way, you might, like Eight of Pentacles, you might just literally just sit down in your studio for days on end making something perfect, right? So there is something to that. I think that idea of like knowing yourself by being outward in the world versus knowing yourself by being inward in the world. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Definitely, very beautiful. So if you think, if it's okay with you, maybe we could start winding down. Yeah.
Wrap up. Yep.
Yeah. And I had the idea, I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe you would like to read a poem from your poem book.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's see. Yeah. Let me find one that's.
And with this, we can say
one
goodbye to the audience.
Yes.
I want to thank everybody for being there. In the meantime, while you're looking for the poem, I'll just let people know that I have a Patreon, and they can join there and help support the show. And I know that you also have a Patreon. You have an amazing podcast, a very, very informative, very.
Oh, Fortune's Wheelhouse. Yes,
it's great.
There's a lot in there. It has concluded, but it's basically an archive now of every, so that people can use it to help learn, the background of the cards. And, even though we're not producing new episodes, there's still, 2,000 downloads every week because people need it. They need it and people return to it to keep, learning.
I think it's amazing how you guys, like, it's like a course, it
is like a course.
The themes and the themes, I think, is the word that I'm looking for. How you segmented things, and you look at stuff from not just tarot but numerological place, and also a little bit of astrology. it's very, very good. I like it.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate that I got to do that project with Mel for 4 years. I mean, she is an incredibly, learned person, and and talented. If you have ever seen her decks, they're just beautiful. So, and you needed to have a conversation to draw all of what the two of us knew out of each other. Sometimes it's hard to just monologue and dump all the things onto an audio file. So, so I think it was really a wonderful, almost a initiatory project for us to do to get through that. And I'm glad that we did, even though it's now come to a conclusion. So I'm going to read you just the first first story in this 6 poems of wood and water. It's called Swimming in Rain, and it happened. A lot of these poems kind of happen spontaneously. This one happened during hurricane season, which was, the beginning of September here. And this huge hurricane, I forget which one, was coming our way. And at that time, for exercise, I was swimming a lot because, I like to run, but I have arthritis now because I'm old in one of my feet. And so I, been trying to swim more. So, and I thought, oh, well, I want to go swim in our lake, but it's raining. And then I thought, wait a second, what's the point of not swimming when it's raining, right? I mean, you're going to get wet anyway. So this was the first time I ever went for a swim when it was actually raining pretty hard. And it's called Swimming in Rain. And the sort of epigraph for it is a one of those couplets, those spells I write with my tarot draw. And the draw that I had gotten was something like, I don't remember, it was probably 7 of Cups maybe, and the Death card or something like that. But it was, the spell was beauty. It's a tensile wish for what is drowning to a fish. Okay, so I'm going to read you the poem now. On the 1st of September, the outer bands drew near, and I went to swim in the rain. Pointless raincoat, absurd umbrella, pretentious towel, weapons of inclemency. Why should a swimmer fear getting wet? I went out as I am, undefended and invincible. On the black mirror of the lake, a furious needlepoint, a subtle tattoo on an infinite drum, a silver punctuation on an ever-changing text. The water, warm as your first bath, none of my kind in view or earshot, only a startled duck crying out in flight, and over there, a water lily open to the rain. For the sake of its pristine rays I swam, its day-wide bloom, its yellow eye, poised and spattered with glass beads, suspended between lake and sky, undefended and invincible. More than undaunted in its trance of perfection, preferring this state to all others, extravagant with symmetry, exalted in its praise of all that flows. Treading water clumsily, I barely brushed a stem, a foot away. The blossom dunked, the jewel sank. I waited in vain for it to rise, my very touch a killing blow. Even as I hung there, a specter tapped my shoulder, calling me home by the foot-worn path. Rain ornamented every pine needle, rain polished every stone. Treading earth, more surely than water, I came to my preferred state. The scent of coffee and incense, the black ink and the patter of speech, undefended and invincible.
Beautiful.
So that's, yes, that's a poem about, people being in their natural state and nature being in its natural state and trying to find the bridge between the two.
Yes, finding your element. I love it.
Yes. So thank you so much for having me on, Rafa. It's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, well, same. I'm really inspired by our conversations. Yeah, and again, your beautiful fragrance and your energy are just amazing. And yeah, I'm very thankful. I'm very happy and lucky to have the opportunity to speak with you and with all the people that have come on the show that Yeah, they have.
Yes.
I've been nurtured so much by all these conversations, and I've grown so much. And the other card that I drew, I'm just going to tell you,
Yeah.
was the King of Pentacles.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
The King of Pentacles. You know, yes. So that's the Hermit and the King of Pentacles are two of my cards because they have to do with my sun in Virgo. And I love them both. And you know what I do on King of Pentacles days? I eat great food, and I think you should too.
Cool, I'll do that. Thank you so much. All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Rafa.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy
Bye.
your day. Bye-bye.
You too.